It has become a positive. At the time, it was the toughest decision I've ever made. A lot of tears went into that, a lot of turmoil, a lot of self-reflection. I really sat with that for a while. But what was happening to me in that moment, and this really speaks to that connection between physiology and anxiety, because what was happening was my body really couldn't sustain that type of lifestyle. So for those of you who don't know, when you are a brand new flight attendant, you are on reserve, meaning that you're on call 100% of the time, and you're really at the mercy of crew scheduling.
24/7.
24/7. I mean, it's never ending. And they can modify you and all these things. So, it was tough. Like for me, it felt very much like sitting at the phone waiting for like a boy to call me. You know what I mean? Like it was.
I can't say I know what that's like. I'm Andre, and this is the Speak Your Life Podcast, where we talk about everything as it relates to education, careers, values, mentors, and anything to do with purpose. We do this one impactful conversation at a time, whether it's solo dolo with yours truly or our amazing guests to share stories, industry insights, encouraging words, and calls to action that can help you get closer to your why. Become a part of the Speak Your Life community by subscribing today to the podcast and following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Speak Your LYFE, because life without your why is meaningless. Okay, the first podcast interview with a mask on. Here we go.
I am smiling under the mask. You couldn't tell.
I could tell by your eyebrows. Yeah, those eyebrows say everything. But yes, today we have a very special guest, and she graduated with a bachelor's in English from Aquinas College in Grand Rapids, Michigan. She is currently pursuing a master's degree at DePaul University in writing, rhetoric, and discourse with a concentration in professional digital writing. She was a former flight attendant and coworker of mine, and now is the co-founder of Jenna and her mom, is a social anxiety coaching company. So please welcome Jenna.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited. I didn't expect to be wearing masks today, but hey, with these times, I've learned to like go with the flow. I've become a professional at going with the flow, and I don't know. I just you have things, a visual of like what you think is gonna happen, and then something else totally happens that you didn't even expect. So. Yep. I think we've all learned that lesson, so here we are.
For sure. If you didn't know it before, you know it now with this pandemic. So.
That's right. That's right. So I don't even know what the difference between weird and normal is anymore, because honestly, it's kind of blurred lines nowadays. So, but anyways, man, it is a little hot today. The Chicago weather is, I will say this, it's hot, but I feel like yesterday was worse.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And it was so humid yesterday. It was it was a million times worse. I felt like.
But yeah, guys, we just got some chai tea and coffee, at the French cafe. It was very fancy. They gave us a little macarons in this little box. She even asked me if I wanted a ribbon. I was like, no, it's okay. I just want to be regular. I'm not that fancy today, but thank you so much. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into things. So Jenna, tell everybody your story. And before I say that, I want to make sure I pronounce your last name correctly. Is it Jenna VanderWeyden? VanderWeyden.
Yes, very close. Very common mistake there.
Okay, VanderWeyden, and that's Dutch, right?
It is Dutch, yeah. Okay. My dad's from the Netherlands originally, so whole Dutch side of the family.
Nice, so, nice, awesome. So Jenna, here at the Speak Your Life Podcast, we like to focus on one of the two most important things in life: knowing when you were born and why, and that journey in between to getting to why you were born. So give us a little insight onto that. Just share, some insights about, the time you were born. If you don't want to give specific dates, we can just talk about the era, what cartoons were going, what the culture was like, and then transition to why you feel like you were born.
Sure. Well, I was born in 1989, and I am happy to say that.
Hey, there we go.
We actually, if you follow us, we actually use that. So you'll see that come up occasionally in our stuff. We use it for our price points. And the message behind that is actually the science that we base our coaching on was available in 1989 when I was born.
Cool.
We didn't have access to it at the time, and my life would look pretty different had we known the things that we know now. So for us, that's a pretty significant thing, and we like to bring that in, pay a little homage to that. But yeah, I grew up in a Midwest town, very normal kind of background, normal family, lots of love, lots of support, all that. What's interesting about my story, and then this really sort of leads into my journey and how I kind of found my purpose. I was looking at old photos with my mom just a couple weeks ago, and it was funny because I'm looking at these photos and I'm seeing this young girl who looks perfectly happy doing family things, school functions. And I could remember those moments, and I remember just feeling this like insane panic.
Wow. And
that was my life. I mean, that was really like from my earliest memories. I just remember being absolutely terrified of everything, of going to school, of leaving my house, of even being in my house. I mean, I had anxiety like when I was home alone, so it's interesting how you can kind of live what looks like on paper a pretty typical happy normal life, but a lot of my choices, and well, most of my choices were really dictated by that panic that I was feeling.
Wow.
And so it really changed the trajectory of my life, and we can get more into that later, but it did lead me to finding my purpose, which was, after living this social anxiety journey for so long, because I really didn't find my way out of it until I was about 29 years old, to be honest. That was really the turning point for me, and it took that long, to kind of figure out like how to get out of that and how to become the person that I always wanted to be and the person that I always felt that I was on the inside, but couldn't project into the world. So now, my purpose is to share my experience and teach others, how to also kick anxiety out the door, so that they can live their lives the way that they want.
Wow. Yeah, I think, this episode specifically here is so important to our listeners, especially in a time like this. Obviously with pandemic, we have social injustices, unrest in this country. There's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of people feeling an extremity of emotions, from maybe really happy, from spending family time with each other, or to like really sad or really angry with the unjust killings that we've seen in the Black community and stuff like that. And so I think it's so important, what you're doing and what you and your mom bring to the table in regards to like what we're facing as a country, what we're facing in the world together as society. And so it's oh man, I think we were supposed to do this podcast like back earlier, like in March, I think. But I think honestly, this is the perfect time, this right now, because all this stuff didn't happen. I mean, I feel like we had all these things that was like, I feel like the build up to this moment right now, where it was an avenue or a means in which more people walk that path of anxiety, of a maybe a darker tunnel towards more anxiety, towards more depression, towards more feelings of discomfort and things like that. Excuse me. I know for myself, when George Floyd died, as a black man, I don't know, I felt, I'm not clinically, depressed or anything like that. I'm not going to say that.
Sure.
But I did feel depressed. I don't have depression, but I did feel depressed, and I felt that for days. I didn't feel like wanting to do anything. I didn't want to do any podcasts. I didn't want to get on social media. I didn't want to do anything like my normal routine. It knocked me out of my normal routine, because I just thought about my own safety, and I'm just like, or my family. I'm like, that could have been my dad. That could have been me. Right. And so reading on anxiety and just learning about what you guys do, I think this is the moment to talk about that. This is the moment. It's perfect. For sure. Yeah.
I totally agree, because, and also, with the pandemic, this is sort of, we have this built-in pause. Like we were talking about this earlier, we have this built-in pause where we can kind of step back and start to reevaluate things, or, do some of that work that we've been putting off. And I think as a nation, as well as individually, I've really felt personally that I've taken this time to kind of work on some personal things that I was, putting off, because life is busy, and, and we're always doing something, and I'm really goal oriented, so I'm always kind of pushing toward that next thing. And this time I think has, again, like as a global community, as well as individually, I think it's a time to step back and kind of build some self-awareness and start asking ourselves some tough questions.
I agree. I totally agree. And so walk us through that moment where you're at United Airlines. Shout out to United.
Hey, and still love you guys. Still love you.
And you're just like, man, all these people on the plane just give me anxiety. I'm out of here. I need to start my own thing. Like, walk us through that moment. Like, what was that like where you just realize you need to do your own thing. You need to, there's something that's in you that you feel like you need to release that could be beneficial and a gift to the world.
Sure. It was, I wish I could put that positive of a spin on it, and in the end it has become a positive. At the time, it was the toughest decision I've ever made. A lot of tears went into that, a lot of turmoil, a lot of self-reflection. I really sat with that for a while. But what was happening to me in that moment, and this really speaks to that connection between physiology and anxiety, because what was happening was my body really couldn't sustain that type of lifestyle. So for those of you who don't know, when you are a brand new flight attendant, you are on reserve, meaning that you're on call 100% of the time, and you're really at the mercy of crew scheduling. And 24/7. 24/7. I mean, it's never ending. And they can modify you and all these things. So, it was tough. Like for me, it felt very much like sitting at the phone waiting for like a boy to call me. You know what I mean? Like it was.
I can't say I know what that's like.
No, you're on the other end.
I would be the caller.
Well, that's all funny. You ladies out there can totally relate to this. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so for me, like the mentality of that was tough and destructive, and what happened was, so a little bit of backstory. So the connection between physiology and anxiety is what has been something that's been huge for me in moving forward in my life. I really lived the first 27 or so years of my life having no control over my anxiety, and I did all of the traditional therapies and medications and all that stuff, and for me it didn't work. It actually made it worse. So I ended up I could not function like I wanted to, and I couldn't really function in society in general. So and I have high standards for myself, and I'm, like I said, I'm goal oriented. I'm motivated, you know, I want to like achieve.
Yeah.
And so it was really, really tough for me to not be able to do the things that I wanted to do. So long story short, you know, my mom and I went down this sort of Google rabbit hole, and we kind of found these connections between gut health and anxiety, and food is medicine, and you know, looking at your physiology, and really treating the body in order to treat the mind. And that was a completely new approach for us. We had never, you know, it was always sort of mind over matter, which for me just never worked. It was always way harder than it needed to be.
It's okay.
Sorry. So,
tell me it didn't happen.
So I really had to kind of figure out and like build this self-awareness between my body and what I was doing in my environment, what I was eating. You know, I had to look at a lot of those things, and then, you know, we went in and we did like blood tests and things like that, so we could see where my levels are and all of that. So when I started to treat my body, that I was able to like feel better in my mind. And so that was really amazing. So that sort of beginning part was what even got me to a point where I was able to apply to be a flight attendant and pursue that, you know. But what we didn't know at that time was that I had a histamine intolerance, which is a new thing. Kind of people have not heard about this. This is kind of just starting to come out. And basically there's a direct correlation between histamine and panic. And that was really what I was feeling all the time, really. I mean, I would it's hard to describe to someone who's never experienced it, but it's kind of like being on the verge of a panic attack all the time. And you can't function in that. Like, it's really difficult to be able to have a sharp mind and be able to like interact with your environment in the appropriate ways when you're really in that like fight or flight mode. And that was really my life. So when I was a flight attendant, I found that it was just really difficult to do my job because my body was just reacting. Like, my hands would be shaky. You know, I'd have heart palpitations. I couldn't breathe correctly. Like, I have this thing. So, I would have this thing where I would inhale, but I wouldn't exhale. So like, you're literally sitting there like hoarding this oxygen and not letting anything out.
It's crazy.
And that really it's a full body experience. So because of that, I wasn't able to show up in my job the way that I wanted to. And it was really sad for me because I really identified as a flight attendant. It's a family business for us, you know. I had a really tough time walking away, and I still look back. I have my days where I look back and I go, man, I wish that would have worked, you know. But it's really a perfect example of what anxiety has the control that anxiety has had over my life, because that was one of the bigger sort of things that where it dictated, you know, what I couldn't do. But it was happening. It's that type of thing has happened my whole life. I've had to course correct because anxiety was keeping me from my passions and keeping me from cultivating things from, you know, my whole life.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. You know, the BBC reports a U.S. workers' online study said that nearly 70% agreed public speaking skills are critical for success at work. Maybe you are a student looking to become a prime candidate for that internship, or might I say full-time position, or maybe you have already been in the job market for some time now and you just want to stand out amongst your coworkers looking to get that raise you feel like you've been passed up for too long now. Go to speakyourlife.com/private-lessons. That's speakyourlyfe.com/private-lessons. Again, that's speakyourlyfe.com/private-lessons to become a better communicator tomorrow by signing up today. I really am a true believer in everything happening for a reason, and just I don't really believe in coincidence. Even though I know you wish it worked out with being a flight attendant, but I think this is for a reason.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, obviously we wouldn't be here
Mm-hmm.
having this conversation if that never happened. So,
yeah.
and what you're doing is bringing benefit to a lot of other people who maybe they were struggling to go in and see a coach face to face, and they appreciate the comfort that you guys bring them with the video chats and the online interface. So I really do believe that everything happens for a reason. As that's so typical of a saying, but I think that's true. I really do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think what people a lot of people tend to forget, or maybe they don't give themselves grace for this, but we can only do what we can do when we can do it.
Yeah.
There's so many times in my life when someone was coming to me and saying, hey, you need to do X, Y, Z. Well, I had to learn that, I had to move at my own pace, and I was going to do X, Y, and Z, but I was going to do them when I was ready to do them. And I really, you can't force yourself into doing something that you're not prepared for, because at the end of the day, if you do that, or at least in my experience, when I did push myself to do things that I wasn't prepared for, typically I botched it, or I would walk away feeling embarrassed because I, said the wrong thing, or I, couldn't react to something appropriately, or whatever. I mean, there's so many examples, but I think that's a big lesson that I've learned, and anxiety has had a key role in playing that for me, pointing that out to me, because it made me accept that I was on my own rhythm, and that's okay. Yeah. Because it has to be okay, because otherwise I won't be able to do anything. I won't be able to progress if I don't accept and give myself that grace to be on my own timetable.
I agree. I was reading, I think it was the Anxiety and Depression Association of America was talking about how it's about 25 million Americans suffer from anxiety disorder, general anxiety, GAD, and I think it's 1 in every 5 people suffer from anxiety. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I didn't think it was that many. But
yeah, it's a staggering amount, and I would venture to say that every single person knows at least one person, whether intimately or an acquaintance, that really struggles with anxiety. Yeah. And you can't always see it. That's what's crazy about it, is I remember being in such a panic mode, and facial expressions would be deer in the headlights, was not able to function in, interactions with high school friends, college friends, name it, but nobody knew. No, we didn't even use the word anxiety between my mom and I until I was well into high school, and I wasn't diagnosed until I was, I think 18. I literally as a child thought that everybody had as much fear as I did, and that they just hid it better. Yeah. Because I had no idea, because I was born with it. I mean, I will attest, I really believe I was flat out born with it. So when you grow up that way, it's your normal, it's your everyday. So you don't even necessarily know that you have something that can actually be treated in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's why the conversations are so important, and why it's so important to have that in the home as well. And that's one of the things that my mom and I are passionate about as well. We try to help our the people that we help. We try to how do you talk to your family about this? How do you have that conversation, or and stuff like that, because I think that's so important. Because otherwise it can go misdiagnosed for so long, and then you kind of lose your life, you don't get to start it until way later, and it's sad.
You're just, trudging through each day rather than really living.
Yeah, you're in survival mode, and that's how I spent the majority of my life, really, up until my mid-20s. I was strictly just trying to survive most days.
Wow.
So.
Wow, that's crazy. I I really feel for people who, who have different, disorders mentally, because, there's a lot of people that, they look good on the outside, like they look healthy, they look, they go to the gym, and you just don't know what's behind that smiling face on Facebook, a picture they post, or, whether you see them in the store or church or wherever you go. And you see, on the news of people, whether it's anxiety or depression, they take their own lives, and you're just like, wait a minute, like, I literally just saw this person the other day, like, talking, having a good time, laughing, and just chilling. And then now I see this, like, it just doesn't even make sense. So I guess, you're right. You really just never know. And that's why it's, so important for people to really, for people that you really care about, to really dive in and how are you doing? How are you really doing? Having those conversations, because you just never know.
And I think it's like adding to that as well, because checking in is obviously massive, but it's also about checking when things are not working. When you're doing some sort of treatment or some sort of therapy or whatever, if it's not working, you have the right to question it. You don't have to accept the status quo. And that was big for us because, I like nothing against any traditional treatments. If they work for people, fantastic. Like I that's amazing. And I'm honestly jealous of you. But it's when those treatments aren't working, like, you don't have to accept the anxiety. You don't have to accept that you're limited by these things that are going on in your body and your mind. There are other solutions, and we're all about finding the right for you solution. Because everybody is different. So what works for me is not necessarily going to work for anybody else. And I think it's important to build that self-awareness and really learn from your body. Like, your body is speaking to you, and if you pay attention and you learn how to listen, you can do a lot of things,
like thrive.
Exactly.
Like, not just survive. So,
exactly.
And so just like, what is like a practical like tip you would offer to the audience, like, for lowering anxiety, especially the ladies out there, because because the report that I was reading also mentioned that women are twice as likely to suffer from GAP, general anxiety disorder, compared to men, and I think it has something to do with how they take in or absorb serotonin or something like that. Something I read about that, but I don't know, what is one practical thing that you would...
Let's see. There are a lot of different things. I mean, you can look into, like, I think my thing is, what helped me was starting to build that self-awareness and really look at, okay, what's my environment look like? What's my lifestyle look like? What am I eating? Am I around certain chemicals all the time, or do I have mold in my apartment? Stuff like that. And really pay attention to, like, is that affecting my body? Is it affecting my sinuses? Is it affecting, do I have joint pain? Do I have gastrointestinal issues? Because the thing is like, anxiety is so much more than just feeling a little afraid. There's a lot of other symptoms that go along with it that a lot of people don't really attribute to it. So we're talking joint pain, we're talking gastrointestinal issues, we're talking headaches, acne, severe acne, chronic fatigue is massive, you know. So I think, like, one of the things that I would start doing, and again, this is just sort of base level first step. Just start writing some of that stuff down. And I know that's a lot easier said than done. I'm not a massive journaler. I kind of hate keeping journals and all that stuff. But if you start paying attention and start making those connections, you can start moving toward what's going to work for you. And that's ultimately what's going to get you toward the life that you want to live, free of the anxiety and free of...
Hey, this is Teddy from the Wanting Less podcast. I got a quick story for you. In 2018, my life was turned upside down. I found myself broke, depressed, exhausted, newly single after 8 years. Today, almost 2 years later, I've completely altered my financial destiny for the better, landed an amazing woman who loves me for me, and I've increased my happiness exponentially. How did I do this? How did I start fresh, but well this time? Simple, really. I made it my only focus to determine what mattered most to me, to block out the rest and get after it with a vengeance. Oh, and I didn't do it alone. Listen and subscribe to the Wanting Less podcast wherever you listen, and if you want to learn more, check out wantingless.org. Maybe today's the day that your life takes off. Talk to you soon.
Of where the anxiety is leading you.
Wow. Yeah, that's I always hear about journaling when it comes to like people suffering from like any mental disorder or anxiety, depression, whatever like that. Journaling here, it's very therapeutic, and going to counselors or things like that as well. So there's like so many things that people can do, but I guess sometimes when people are in it, like it's just like, where do you start?
Right. Yeah, I think that's the toughest point, and that's where we try to come in. We meet you where you are. That's like one of our biggest philosophies is like, we're gonna meet you where you are. We've been there. We have this dual perspective where I lived it. My mom supported me, and it really took the two of us to like live my one life.
Wow.
So one of the things, like, I don't want to push journaling too hard because I honestly can't even I'm not
doing it myself.
If it works for you, cool. I love it. Do it. But for us, it was more like questioning what wasn't working.
Okay.
Not allowing the status quo to just be the be all end all, and then paying attention to those connections between physiology and what was going on in my head, like anxiety or brain fog, or mood swings or obsessive thoughts or whatever. Like, there are a lot of physiological root causes.
Yeah.
And when you start looking at your body, like, you really can start making strides toward decreasing that anxiety at a level where you're not feeling it. And I think that's what's kind of missed in anxiety conversations. It's sort of, let's accept the anxiety, let's work with it, let's manage it. And I think that's all valuable work. I mean, I definitely did all of that work, and it helped me to, build on, like, I was building on that work, which is great. But at the end of the day, like, for me anyway, it always felt like there was Jenna, the personality, like me, who I was at my core, and then there was anxiety. So it was like this internal constant battle, and so for me it always felt like so much bigger than just mind over matter and just change your behavior. And I feel like I'm getting off on a tangent, but I guess my point is like, like, if that's how it is for you, the general you, like, pay attention to that, because there are some other things that you can do. And you can look at histamine intolerance is huge. You can look at pyrrole disorder. You can look at inflammation, and there are real, like, lifestyle changes that you can make that will undercut that anxiety so you don't even feel it from the start. And that's what changed my life.
Wow. Yeah, because I remember earlier we were at lunch and you were talking about like the histamine disorder, and I was sitting there eating hummus, and you're just like, that's a big source of it. And I was like, oh really? Wow, that's crazy. Like, should I just like close this so you don't have to like look at my hummus and be jealous?
No.
But yeah, for those of you hummus lovers out there and you just feeling some type of way after you eat hummus, you might want to consider that you might have some problems with your histamine. So but how would you encourage like someone who's experiencing like anxiety and or even somebody who's not experiencing anxiety, just like when it comes to pursuing their passion, pursuing their purpose, or what something that they thought about doing, like you took a leap of faith and did with, you know, going from United to now having your own company. So how would you encourage anybody out there?
You know, I mean, that's a loaded question, because with anxiety, it really does it forces you into that box. It forces you into something that, or at least it forced me into a lot of corners. Yeah. And it really wasn't until I found what worked for me to decrease it from the source that I was able to make those steps, you know? Yeah. So I think my biggest thing is, like, be nice to yourself, be kind, be compassionate to yourself, you know? Let yourself off the hook a little bit. It's okay to, you know, have bad days and things, and it's okay to be struggling. But at the end of the day, also, you know, put in some research time. Like, look at things, alternative medicines, or you know, alternative treatments, especially if something's not working for you. You know, if something is working for you, great, like full steam ahead, like do it, you know, dive in head first. But that was the big thing for me, was I was done with anxiety. So I was like, I will do anything. Put anything in front of me, I will do anything. You know, I tried all sorts of therapies. I did hypnosis, and you know, and not knocking hypnosis, it's actually pretty cool. But like, you know, I tried a lot of different things. And so when it came down to, like, okay, we need to look at some lifestyle changes, we might need to tackle some dietary changes, we might need to, you know, go organic, or, you know, whatever it was, like, I was down because I was so tired of not being able to be who, you know, me. I wasn't able to, like, present myself to the world. So I think, number one would be just, like, give yourself some grace, and know that you have options. Like, you really do. You have some options.
Yeah, you do. There's a thing called Google out there.
Yeah. And I mean, we're totally available at Jenna and her mom. DM us anytime. We're completely here for anybody who this is, like, resonating for. So
yeah. And you know, when it comes to, like, living your life and letting people see the real you, and not mask your life behind this wall of anxiety, it seems like there must be, like, foundational pieces in place for you to, like, build your life on, so that there's some stability, so there's consistency in your life, where you just feel like you're living, you feel like you have peace, you feel like you have love within, so that you can give to others. And here in this podcast, we talk about, like, looking at life like a house, and the question is, like, what is a foundational piece of your life, or your house? One thing that you would say.
Oh, just one.
There's so many.
That's so hard.
That's what makes it a challenge.
I know. I think one of the biggest things for me in my life, anxiety or no anxiety, has been personal growth. I'm all about personal growth. Every single day, I want to be a better version of myself than I was the day before. And I really bring that into everything that I do, whether it's school, work, friends, relationships, whatever. I'm constantly, that's really my drive in life. And understanding too that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to achieve, you know, some sort of trophy or a certificate in something, or another degree, or whatever. It's about,
you're about to get a master's. So.
I mean, you know, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I think it's like, for me, it's just, there's satisfaction in living every day to the best of your ability. And if that means on that day that you're sitting home with your jammies on, watching some Netflix all day, girl, do it. You know what I mean? But if it also means getting out and, like, grinding, do it, you know? And so for me, that's, like, that's been a massive thing for me in my life, just in general, holding myself to a standard that you know, I can be proud of, and meeting and or exceeding it, and just wanting to, like, at the end of the day, you know, when my time is up, I want not even necessarily anyone else to look back, but I want to be able to look back and go, you know what, I died the best version that I could have been on that day.
Yeah.
So that's massive for me.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Yeah, I think people like the deeper side of you, like the real, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but just like the it's like the spirit within is like, you know, when you feel like you've done different things, had different experiences, you want to know that you had a full life. You want to know that, you know, you live like to the fullest and felt fulfillment, not just acquired things,
right.
Not just had accomplishments, but actually fulfilled life. Because there are people, you know, Tony Robbins, I always like quoting him. He always says, you know, achievement without fulfillment is like the biggest failure. And so for people to be able to have that fulfillment and, you know, have those achievements is even a bonus. So yeah, like that's what it's all about. Like, you know, and that's what it, you know what we're here doing. You're pursuing your purpose, helping people with anxiety, something that you've gone through yourself, and you know, you're sharing your story here and other platforms, and you're getting the message out there, and letting people know that, you know, it's gonna be okay. It's you know, they don't have to go through this by themselves,
for sure.
And you know, it's you know, it's like we're all in this together type of mentality.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And so now we're gonna transition into the question of the day.
Okay.
So just a random question, and today's question of the day is, what's been your favorite quarantine video, either on YouTube or TikTok?
I'm the worst millennial ever. I've never seen a TikTok video. And I don't spend much time on YouTube. That is, oh man. Oh, I failed your podcast.
Yep, this is all over.
Oh,
We're
no.
done here.
Cut,
yeah, you know what?
cut.
Just I'm gonna just turn this off right now.
Okay, let me answer it this way. Can I answer with like, because I have like a TV film background. I love TV and film.
Sure.
So I'm gonna plug Normal People on Hulu. If you've not streamed it yet, it's definitely rated R for the kids out there. But it is so good. If you're interested in like relationships, even like mental health journey. And it's not too heavy on that, but I mean the story is beautiful, and the show is like beautifully shot, beautifully written. Let's do a whole other episode on just talking about Normal People, because I love it so much. Yeah,
that's part 2 and 3 and 4
right.
and maybe 5. But all right, cool. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here and just sitting down and talking. This has been great. And hey guys, I just wanted to encourage you to subscribe and follow Jenna on and her mom on social media, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook, at Jenna and her mom. So that's JENNA and her mom. So and thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Speak Your Life podcast. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe. Whether on Spotify, Google Play, or Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave a review if you've connected with anything into today's episode. And if you have any questions, comments, or just want to hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, you can find us at Speaker LYF, because life without your Y is meaningless. Last but not least, podcasts are free to listen to, but they're not free to produce. So for that reason, we have a Patreon account, and so we'll leave the link below. You can leave as little as $10, $5, or even $1 a month. Thanks again for joining us. Love you guys, and we'll see you